2 months ago I made a video about how I made a Pokemon battle theme, and there was a lot of people giving me feedback that it didn't sound like Pokemon. Don't worry, everyone was quite nice, weirdly. In total though, I found 36 comments mentioning Toho, 30 comments mentioning Undertale, 10 comments mentioning Deltarune, 3 comments mentioning My Hero Academia, 2 comments mentioning Sonic, and 1 comment saying that I had long fingernails. That's not a lot of comments saying that it sounds like Pokemon. So since I didn't get the Pokemon feel correct, I set off to figure out a way to complete my redemption arc. I put my all into my training and understanding. I first started off by gathering as much feedback from my comments as I possibly could. Some really tried to help and gave thorough feedback, and those actually ended up playing a part in how I created the piece. After that, I studied more by watching several 8-bit music theory videos on repeat. I tried my best to pick a set of themes to put my full focus on in terms of inspiration. One of the songs I love most is Zinnia's theme from Oraz, and 8 people mentioned that in my previous attempt. I also picked my other favorites, Hoenn's Champion theme and Wally's theme. My favorite region may or may not be Hoenn. But now it's time. It was Psyducking time. I carefully ingrained characteristics of these Pokemon themes into my mind, which I will explain some of them later. I was ready to start making that theme, and who would have ever guessed what the outcome would have been? Okay, maybe it's not Psyducking time. Reality definitely hit. No matter how many mental notes I thought I put into figuring out what it should sound like, that didn't mean my P-brain was able to translate it into my own thing. It took weeks to find even some smaller ideas through tons and tons of fails. I realized in order to make something sound battly in the first place, it's important to include 1. Dissonance and 2. Chromaticism. Chromaticism is working with 12 tones instead of staying diatonic or in key, which opens up a lot but increases the difficulty, especially if you're trying to aim for a specific feeling. I can only imagine how it is with 24. And so the best way I could try to make this work is, of course, number 1, mess around with it until it sounds right, and number 2, steal. Weeks started to go by, and I was frustrated with writer's block. That uncomfortableness I felt and the pain I felt in my head, trying my best to think of things, made me want to stop and give up. If you're a growing artist as well, you should know that this is the point in time where you shouldn't give up. Because that means you are out of your comfort zone, and being out of your comfort zone is where all your growth is hidden in. So I kept going, and I eventually turned this into this. I'm slowly starting to get better at not staying diatonic, which sounds like an insult to call someone basic, but I have no idea how to explain it. Just like how my theory textbook says, have you ever tried to explain something without having the right words to capture exactly what you mean? That's just my life. I'll try my best to explain some of my thought processes without using my first language of dumbass. Alright, class is in session. Everyone shut up. Please, everyone shut up. Which side am I supposed to? Besides just thinking of it as a leading tone, or a passing note belonging to the harmony or the key, I thought of using the context of harmonies when choosing the note. Take this C major chord, for example. We throw in an accidental of E flat, and that is now a minor. It's not as jarring because we have the context of the C and G still being there. I use that thought process right here to give it that crunch without being super jarring. But in dumbass language, that translation would be crunchy semitone go burr. You can write that down, guys, okay? Any questions? Can I go to the bathroom? Absolutely not. I want you to on the table while you stare at me in the eye to assert your dominance. Any more questions? Put your hand down, you bitch. Okay, anyway, so I will now be explaining this new part because it's a little more complicated. I wanted to explain my thought process behind it. Make sense? Some ideas started to come together after a very long time, but 2 ideas were so different that it couldn't lead to one another properly. So I decided to just work on one big piano composition first. This way, I can just focus on the whole piece together and make sure all the ideas mesh well, as well as to see if, even with just piano, would it sound like Pokemon. I'll now be explaining the main 4 parts. A build-up utilizing dissonance from this tritone and a rapid 8th note pattern in the progression that is often seen in earlier gens battle theme, basically making it sound busier than it actually is, which I had learned from 8-bit music theory. The main theme also uses dissonance from diminished chords and chromatic movements, mainly from the context of this progression, also learned from 8-bit music theory. The main part of the melody was actually thought of before I added the chord progression. I don't know where it came from, but I am confident a Pokemon battle theme must have had this type of pattern. The 3rd idea came from Hoenn's Champion theme, and I've stolen it. It's mine now. I'm kidding. I tried to think of ways to make it more original, whether it's to change the rhythm, the harmonies, such as adding this sus chord jab to each measure, and adding a glitchy rapid piano at the end of each measure. The final idea was when I decided to just work with my forte and create some sort of hype melody and progression. So I very quickly made this. And then I asked 4 of my friends what they thought.
Gave it immediate Pokemon vibes.
Okay.
And it wasn't just the same thing repeated, so it like makes you feel like you're in the battle.
Yeah, I think it's really similar to Pokemon for sure. Sounds like they started the intro to a battle.
Like, if you had any parts that you thought didn't sound like Pokemon
Around to this area, like it gave me Pokemon vibes, but just not what I'm like used to.
what is your favorite Pokemon region?
Unova is my favorite.
I want you to tell me what you think of when you hear this.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Let's hear it.
What does that make you think of?
I feel like the first thing comes to mind. I'm gonna be as specific as possible.
Pokemon.
Okay, thank you.
You can go wrong. Did someone say otherwise?
Because the first thing I was thinking of, right, was like Cube World. It's like similar like style to this. I'm thinking, nah, not Cube World. It's not Cube World. So the next thing is like probably Zelda.
Because I only heard Pokemon. I have proof. One of my friends told me it's Pokemon.
What it was supposed to be is another Pokemon battle theme.
Okay. Well, it definitely captured the battle.
How many Pokemon games have you played?
I played the OG Pokemon Red and nothing more.
Okay. Alright. It makes sense now. And so I finished up the song, adding percussion, drums, and fill patterns for better transitions and pacing. One thing I wanted to play around with was the idea of a leitmotif, because the composers do it so beautifully. A leitmotif is a recurring theme or musical phrases that is associated with a character, idea, or situation. Maybe I could make one for when I do your mom jokes. I seem to have an uncontrollable problem. Before, I tried to make a motif, but because it was just one piece, it didn't feel like it counted. I tried my best to make each melody fit some sort of characteristic. I wanted to see how it'd be as an encounter soundtrack for when you see them casually at a town or something. And as a sorrowful soundtrack. Damn, he absolutely demolished my ass. Was he the main character this whole time? Minghui, I actually have something to tell you. I'm actually your sister/girlfriend. What? And I'm actually a guy. I finished the 2 other versions to truly turn these ideas into a leitmotif, and I really hope I did the Pokemon feel and inspiration justice, but I'm not the judge of that. You are. I'll put it all in the description. I might make extended versions on my second channel, but yeah, that's about it. See ya.